What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. My name's John J. II. I'm here with Tone Malone with Malone Beats the Books. Tone, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great, man. It's a great day to be alive. Great day to be a sports fan. The NFL is heating up. All eyes are on the Detroit Lions, and the biggest question still remains. We're going to talk about it here later. And who is America's team? I'm going to ask you that later. Sit on it, think about it. But tell the people who you are, what you do, and what you're all about.
Well, I'm Tom Malone. I started sports betting professionally about 6 years ago. I actually moved straight out to Las Vegas after college. Believe it or not, that was the only place you could legally bet back in 2018. So went out there, and long story short, the rest is history. We've been doing it every day since, which is crazy to even say.
Wow, I mean, so many people dream of making sports betting a lifestyle. I guess what would you give as advice to the people that aspire to have that be in their repertoire? Because you hear so many times sports betting, it's all chance. There's no way you can build a career out of sports betting. What would you tell those people?
I will say I don't advise to do that. I would treat it more of as an entertainment. But if you want to take it serious, that's kind of where I come in, and that is basically the service I provide to my clients, which is the bankroll management side of it, which can help you kind of weather the storm because you're going to lose sports betting. If you go into it thinking you're going to win, you have the wrong mindset. You're going to lose, but my whole objective is to capitalize on the wins, weather the storm, and in the long run, we can profit and we can consistently keep ourselves in the game, wait on that big hitter, and enjoy it. It's all fun at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's got to be for fun. You got to take it all with a grain of salt, and that's what I do with my own portfolio, sports betting, and that's what I tell my people too. Is basically, listen, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Never bet anything you're not expecting to lose or ready to lose. You're not putting the rent payment on it, things like that. But take it with a grain of salt. Have some fun with it. I definitely advise dabbling in it, but just be able to manage it yourself. And self control is paramount when it comes to sports betting or gambling of any kind. So keeping all those things in mind, if you can keep yourself in check, then it's a great thing to do. I think so. Be it as it may, take that for what it's worth. But
Yeah, of course, never bet more than you're willing to lose. Keep your sports betting money separate from your daily life is what I would advise.
right, exactly. Well said. So I want to talk about the Browns and the Broncos, do a little bit of a recap, talk about Jameis Winston, Jerry Jeudy. I guess looking at that game first glance, the Browns obviously did not come out on top. The Broncos did. But looking at the stat sheets, it looked like the Browns had what it took to take that dub. And I was telling you earlier, Kevin Stefanski is not giving up on this team. It's a team that's in rebuilding phase, and they're looking to build. They're looking to obviously, and they're looking like they're going to have good draft status going into 2025. But what do you have to say about Jameis Winston as quarterback of the Browns and this game in particular?
I will say, I wonder how this Browns team would be looking if Jameis was starting, let's say, since week 3 or 4. We might have a different record there in Cleveland, but I will say he's not, the greatest quarterback. He's decent. He looks a lot better than they did before, and I think the offense is capable. It's just the little mistakes that are gonna always be his kryptonite.
Yeah, looking at Winston's stat sheet, 34 for 58 attempts for catches, 497 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And he said live, he said on a lot of interviews, and we've seen memes of it, we've seen posts made of it. He said, Lord, please deliver me from pick sixes. And that was basically the story of the night and probably why the Browns lost that game because so many turnovers. Turnovers were their kryptonite. And I guess if you can limit those turnovers, I think the Browns win decidingly. Why did Jameis have so many picks and pick sixes?
Yeah, just a couple bad decisions. I'd say trying to force balls into where you don't need to. I understand at the end of the game there, you're just trying to make a play, but the one that happened earlier on was just it's completely unnecessary. You don't need to throw that ball, and it just cost them the game because I mean their defense held up. I mean they only gave up what 20 points, I guess. I mean that's not the greatest, but when your offense is putting up 30, defense played a great game. It's just the difference were the two pick sixes. So just tough loss.
Yeah, pick sixes are not going to help with the bottom line, no matter what game you're playing. And you have that many turnovers, really can't expect to win the game, no matter how good you play. Looking at Jerry Jeudy, 9 receptions. You'd think he'd have more with how many yards he had. 235 yards through the air and 1 touchdown. I mean, a lot of those guys did great. And Njoku was another one that really was a shining star, and you would have been happy to have him in the tight end position on your fantasy team, as you would Jerry Jeudy or even Jameis, famous Jameis. If you had him as a quarterback in your fantasy team, you would have been in good shape no matter what. So a lot of guys performed well, and it's crazy they didn't win the game. But with that many turnovers, there's really just no way to pull away with it. There's just no way unless you're Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, that was.
So
I think that was like the first time a quarterback's ever thrown 5 interceptions in one since like the 50s or something like that.
that was just
Or no,
unbelievable.
it might have been the 80s.
They're defying the odds in a lot of different ways, and we're seeing it continue to happen. History has already been made, and history was made last year. Okay, history's continued its way into 2024. We'll see how it bids going into the final stretch of the season, but it's gonna be interesting to see. Anthony Sislo with the comment, Lord, please guide him away from these pick sixes. You know what? That's true because I was actually thinking about picking Jameis up off waivers because we're getting into the dying embers. I just slid into the 6th spot in my fantasy league in the GSN Pro Capper. Oh, my camera's gone, but you can still hear me, right?
Yeah, well, I will say if the Browns would have won that game, we had a parlay. They were the last leg. We got them at plus 200 something, and if they would have won, man, we would have hit a juicy parlay.
Really? So that was the final leg. Tell me a little
That
bit
was the
about that.
final leg. Well, me and my degenerate friends, we have a little group chat, obviously, talking about sports, and someone cooked up a little afternoon parlay. Was the afternoon Sunday slate? We threw in the Eagles, got them as a pluser when they were down to the Ravens, and then we threw the Bucks in there, and then the other game, I'm not. It's not coming to me right now, but the Browns last leg, every leg won, and we just needed the Browns to win. It was like I forget how much it was. I think it was a 20x parlay. So whatever you threw on it, it was 20 times your money, which is crazy off 4 games.
That's just an unbelievable last leg to have too, because that game, as we mentioned, could have went either way at so many stages of that game. So to see it kind of go back and forth, the Browns really fought back into that game, getting down early, fought back into it. Broncos pulled away and basically kept that lead for the remainder. So it's just unfortunate to see, but hey, that's what it is. Joel Dover, pick six these nuts. Pick six these nuts. Yeah, well,
Shout out Jay Dover.
I don't think Jameis is saying that. He's got to have the Lord deliver him from these pick sixes because they're a detriment and they're really hurting him. They're going to hurt him in future seasons. He's looking like he's in good form. I got to assume he's going to keep playing. Aaron Lennox. Jared can have my girl. I think he's talking about Jared Goff. But hey, that's a bold claim, but I respect it. And Brent Myers with the Rams comment.
Oh,
I mean,
that was
where are the
the
Rams?
other. That was the other leg.
That was the other leg. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, so, I mean, you're looking at it, and so many people can say this, too. And talk about parlays, there's got to be a support group for talking about parlays missed by one leg because I feel like everybody has fallen victim to that at some point. If you're ever sports betted, you've lost a big bet that's been hinged on one leg that just didn't hit. And that's just how it crumbles.
Crazy to say, if I just got my money back from all my parlays I've missed by one leg, I'd probably be way ahead in profit. It
See,
just if you gave me my money back on those.
why is that? I guess is that just Vegas really sticking it to you?
Man.
Just saying,
Well,
here, you're not going to hit this leg.
a lot of the really big sports bettors will say parlays are kind of sucker bets because having more than one thing to go your way to win is kind of crazy because it's already kind of lucky enough to even get the one right, but it's like to get 8 or 9 or even 4, it's like it's crazy, which is why they pay so well, and it's why they call them sucker bets because you can hit all of them except one and you lose.
That's right. I guess what gives Vegas the edge? And we use Vegas as the benchmark. I've used it on this show plenty of times. Just talking about Vegas knows more than we know, and it's so true. I guess how do you use that in your strategy to really base your bets on? How you're going to go on a certain bet or whatnot, or if you're going to tease it in your favor from the benchmark, which is the Vegas line. How do you look at Vegas and take that into account when you're making a play?
Well, it's going to be a tough task no matter what you do. I mean, Vegas is knows more than all of us, and they always will. But the little advantages you can have is maybe knowing a certain matchup, like, hey, this offense is better against this kind of defense that this team is running, or hey, this guy's not going to play tonight, or hey, they just played a back-to-back game. Now they're going on the road. This team is coming off 2 days rest, like just things like that. If they're at a short week and then they're playing away, so I mean, just little things like that. Any edge you can get helps. I will say the best advantage you can have is college sports because the professional sports, like year by year, they don't change too much. You're gonna have a pretty much the same looking team each year, but it's the college sports that when there's 50 games playing on a Saturday, it's hard for Vegas to know every single thing about every team, especially these really small ones. So if you have any knowledge of them small games where it's like, hey, this team's favored to lose by 20 points and they might just win. So it's then you take that plus 20 and you throw a monster on it and they win outright and you're like, what the like. So it's just the college sports is where you have the biggest edge.
Yeah, that would make sense because I mean, no matter what kind of algorithms they're working with, software, etc., there's only so much that their software, their tools can do to benefit them and their bankroll. Because Vegas has a bankroll to upkeep. Vegas never loses, and that holds true. That's why those casinos are so nice over there on the strip. So it goes without saying that's how it works. And something that I have heard through the grapevine of other people that have made the strategy. Not going to name any names right now that were live, but people that fade the community. What do you know about fading the community and looking at community weight on a certain bet or a certain line and fading that and the success rate of fading the community? I got to think it's pretty high because Vegas is baiting people into betting a certain way based on how they are perceiving the spread.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
thought I have a lot. I will say a thing I do majority of the time, and I take it this advice from a very successful gambler, Billy Walters. If you're gonna bet the favorite, you bet early in the week, early as you can. And if you're gonna take an underdog, you wait until the very last minute possible. And it's so you can catch the favorite early. So when it changes, you have a little bit more juice over the field. And then if you take an underdog, it's the other way around. So wait on the underdogs, take the favorites early. That is a piece of advice that I've lived by.
Yeah, that's good advice. I like that. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Texans. Aziz Al-Shaair suspended 3 games for that brutal hit on Trevor Lawrence. And this basically sparked controversy amongst the sports world with this hit. Some people being, opposing the hit and saying this is bullshit. This should never happen. Al-Shaair knew exactly what he was doing, and he came in with bad intentions. I think that goes without saying. But that begs the question with the QB slide rule. Obviously, they're exposing themselves. They're saying, "Hey, I'm giving up on the play. I'm done." I'll take the yardage that I got from the run, and most likely, I think Trevor had just got the first down, so he's not really worried about getting too many more yards from that. But did Trevor slide too late? I know that was a question that I had, and that even Tom Brady chimed in about it, and he said, this is a brutal sport, and if you're going to slide, you're kind of opening yourself up to these kinds of hits. What do you have to say about it?
Yeah, I mean it was a tough play. It's hard to fault either guy. Obviously, it did come off a little dirty, but I mean he's defending the first down. It's a big play, like it's a competitive game. You're trying to do whatever for your team. You're putting yourself out there. Both guys are, but yeah, it's just unfortunate. All I can really say about it is like I feel bad for Trevor. It's unfortunate to see him go down like that. It was kind of I don't know. It's tough situation either way you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a scary hit. He goes down, and he kind of looked like he just caught a Jorge Masvidal flying knee, and looked like Ben Askren on the ground. And it was scary. It was scary because he was out. He was completely out of it. His teammates came to his aid and started brawling with the Texans defenders, and you kind of expect that from your guys to be there and defend you, and I think that was justified. But just a scary hit. I think that's just the bottom line with that, and I guess how do you alleviate that going forward with any rules changes or anything like that? Because you have the instance of, like you mentioned, Patty Mahomes faking running out, and obviously you don't want to hit the quarterback. The quarterback is like made of glass with glass bones and paper skin. You don't want to hit the son of a bitch because you might break him, one, and two, you might get an unnecessary flag that's going to put them in field goal range or give them a chance to win the game or score or what have you. So how do you alleviate this issue from occurring in the future? Or is there even a way?
I don't know. It'll have to be something that the NFL digs into themselves. It's tough. Yeah, like you said, when you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes who acts like he's run out of bounds, then turns upfield and runs for another 20 yards, and the defender laid up on him, and it's like, I don't know if you saw that thing about Dan Campbell. They were watching film on Caleb Williams before their game last Thursday, and he was showing a couple clips to the team like, hey, he's had some plays here where he acts like he's going out of bounds and then turns back inside. So guys, like that's not happening today. Basically hit him out of bounds. And that was, then you saw the play with Jack Campbell and Caleb Williams where he did hit him, and it was a legal hit. He never went out of bounds, and you could see Caleb actually duck back in bounds, which is why he ended up taking that hit. And all the Bears fans were like, oh, that's a penalty, and the team was asking for a flag. But if you look at the replay, he was never even went out of bounds. So it's an interesting situation. Just finish the play, I guess. And if you're a quarterback, protect yourself as much as possible. That's all you can do.
Well, Dan Campbell is really a masterclass performance of coaching the defense, because you look at even events like the Tyler Higbee incident last year against the Rams, and that hit wound up injuring him real bad. But you look at it from a rules standpoint, and same with the hit on Caleb Williams. You can't point to a rule where that is against the rules. Yeah, the hit probably looked bad, and it looked like he could have popped his leg out and all this other shit. And it was a scary hit, even on Caleb Williams. That was a scary hit. The Tyler Higbee one, that was brutal. But you really can't point to any rule that they're breaking from the defensive side of the ball. And it's a fair hit. You're hitting them low enough. You're not hitting them at the head or neck area. I don't know. I guess that's just football. That's football. You're going to have to hit. It's a contact sport, and there's only so much you can do from a rules standpoint and from a league standpoint, really, that's going to be able to mitigate any of these, potential injuries, scary hits, things of that nature. Because you can do all the things, bring out the blue tent, do concussion protocols, and all that, the whole 9 yards. But it's still a contact sport, and there's still going to be bodies colliding with other bodies that are in motion. And that's just what it is. So I really don't think there's any way to completely alleviate these kinds of hits. There's just not. And it's just a game of football. And you said it perfectly. Protect yourself at all times, just like Herb Dean says. So, not to make too many UFC references here, but there's a lot of references in the UFC that are very applicable in the NFL.
Yeah, two very physical sports.
Yeah.
You hit a guy up high, it's a penalty. You hit him low, it's a dirty hit. You can't win. It's tough
really
to play
can't.
defense.
Yeah, you really can't. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions real quick. What is the state of the Detroit Lions? Where are they at? How are they feeling going into, a Thursday night game tomorrow here against the Green Bay Packers, an NFC North matchup? The Packers are rolling. They're playing good. They're looking to be contenders in the NFC North, as are the Minnesota Vikings. How does the Detroit Lions navigate that going into this final stretch of the season?
Yeah, the Lions don't have much breathing room here. They got two good teams right behind them in the standings, and Green Bay's playing great football. Minnesota's playing good football, and it's going to be a competitive game. I think I can speak for all Lions fans last week when we were watching the game against the Bears that we were going to blow it, and somehow we came out with a win, and you're just like disbelief, kind of like, how did they screw that one up? And, sometimes things go your way, and it's kind of the turning point for the Lions. We're seeing some stuff go our way this season.
I wouldn't be surprised if you see Eberflus on the sideline of Detroit, with a pat on his back. And legend has it he's still holding out on that sideline in Ford Field, waiting to call that final timeout. But listen, that had all the writing. That had everything written on the wall. And it was textbook. It was cookie cutter from years past, way back when I was a fan of the Detroit Lions myself. Talking, wanting them to win, but it had everything in the prophecy for them to lose that game. I guess regardless of the Eberflus non-timeout call, what led to that Detroit win, and why did they crumble so bad in that second half?
It's just you try to be conservative too much, and then you give team hope, and momentum's a real thing. And once the injuries stack up, you got guys playing out of position, people who are not had as many snaps as others, and the Bears are a good team. They're young, they're still figuring it out, but it just shows the parity in the NFL. Any team can win any given week. Records do not matter.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. All right, that leads me to my next question for you. We knew it was coming. Who is America's team? It's been a question. It's an age-old question. Obviously, it's not the Dallas Cowboys, probably the worst team in football, and I've said it here multiple times, and I'll say it again. Terrible. The worst team. The worst team. Okay, in Jerry's world, Jerry Jones, he's got to do a lot of reconstructing. I don't know if he even has enough time left to do it. But obviously, they're not America's team, but they've been voted as America's team for so long. They've been priding themselves as America's team. And we had some other teams that came into the conversation in previous shows on who was America's team. Who does Tone Malone think America's team is?
Well, first of all, the Cowboys, it's a tough situation over there, but it's funny how everybody, makes them out to be like, oh, some big disappointment, terrible, this and that. And it's like, they have the same record as the 49ers right now. And Hawaii, we're not hearing anything about that where it's like, oh, there's just injuries. We have injuries there. It's like, well, so do the Cowboys. Like, when are we going to put everybody on a fair playing field here? Like, yeah, it's easy to hate on the Cowboys. They got a lot of haters, but I don't think it's fair to, give the 49ers a pass, but then you're going to, dog the Cowboys. But to get back to your question, I think it's easy, to say the Lions. It might seem biased, but they're just like an easy team to root for. They've been down the dumps our entire lives. As long as I can remember, they've been terrible, and it's like this turnaround coming from the city of Detroit, a hard-working city that they have a good story. And I think the fan base is one of the best in all of football, and it's just a great story to see. And they're exciting. I mean, they're the number one offense in the NFL, so they're an exciting team to watch, and I think it's awesome to have them kind of the top of the NFL right now. It's cool to see.
Yeah, it really is a sign of the times, and it is cool to see. It's a hell of a success story. Just looking at the rise of Dan Campbell, being a Detroit Lion in his playing career, and moving on to the coaching position, kind of an unorthodox guy, a guy that really wasn't a serious, contender for any head coaching job anywhere else. But he found a great fit in Detroit, and he's really built that franchise around himself and around people that really care about the city of Detroit and for the team, and rebuilding it and making it into something where you're essentially breaking the curse of the past, and you're becoming a new age of the Detroit football. So Paul Steele with a comment: Lions are the new America's team. Listen, you're not the first one to say that, and I've heard it from a lot of people. A lot of people have told me that. You just heard Tone Malone say it. It's looking like that's the case, but we got to wait and see. They still got the gauntlet. They still got to play the Buffalo Bills. Okay, they still got to play the Minnesota Vikings again. They got to play the Packers. There's some tough games ahead. How do you navigate these tough games?
I think they just got to keep doing what they've been doing. You know, they have a great offensive coordinator, great defensive coordinator, and then obviously their GM who's set this team up for success. You know, they just got to battle. They just got to finish the season strong. I think they have their eyes set in the playoffs right now, but obviously getting that 1 seed, that first round bye would be huge. But yeah, no easy road ahead. Just got to keep doing what you got to do.
I guess going back a couple of weeks, looking at the NFC North, I guess, looking at it today compared to where it was a couple weeks ago, maybe even a month ago, it looked like Detroit was pulling away from the pack. Now that is not as much the case. We're seeing it kind of close in. Obviously, the Bears are out, but you got the Vikings and you got the Packers that are making a hell of a run. How do you fend these two teams off, and can they be stopped? Do they have what it takes to potentially take the NFC North? Is there enough games left? A lot of questions.
NFC North is going to go through Detroit, so they'll have to beat them. If they can beat Detroit, hey, it's open. But as of right now, neither of them have. So as of right now, the NFC North still is in Detroit.
Got to tip your cap to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for beating Detroit in Week 2, the only team to do it this year. I mean, you can look at that game, look back and be like, that's how far we were. That's how close we were from a perfect season up until this point. I mean, you don't want to rewrite the past, but how did that happen? You were kind of going back a little ways. But I know that if you're a Lions fan, anyone that's a Lions fan, that's a loss that sticks out in your mind. I guess what could have went differently in that game? Because you look at a lot of other games that were 50-50 games, 99% of the time in any other season, those 50-50 games are not going Detroit's way. You look at the Vikings game, you look at a couple other games that are in that category. What allowed Tampa Bay to take the dub there?
Well, I will say it was a fully healthy Tampa Bay team who had great weapons on offense. They have a solid defense, and Baker was playing out of his mind. That Buccaneers team beat the Philadelphia Eagles as well. So I mean, they've taken down some big NFC juggernauts, and they had the team to do it. They were a playoff team last year. It's just they've been battling injuries as every team has. But when you lose somebody like Chris Godwin, who the offense was basically running through for the first 7-8 weeks, and then Mike Evans goes down, it's like, man, your back's kind of against the wall now. You lost your juice, and then when you lose that offense, then you put your defense in different situations where they might not have been in the field as much, those early weeks. So it's just one of those things, the injuries will derail a team, but hey, the Bucs are still been competitive, even losing all those guys. So they're a good team.
They're a gritty team.
They'll win their division.
Yeah, they could. I mean, they're looking at probably making a playoff run even still, right? I mean, it's crazy to see that, but looking at the teams that they beat, looking how bad the Atlanta Falcons have played, there's a lot of openings down there, and it's kind of, it's there for the taking, but it's available. So that has to be looked at, and they're a gritty team. You don't want to run into them down the stretch because regardless of their weapons, they're going to be a tough team to beat, and that's been proven. So let's move on now. Let's talk about the parlay of the week. Tone, lay it on the people. The people have been waiting for it. What do you got for them?
Well, parlay of the week, I don't necessarily have one for the week, but I do have one. Oh, it actually might be a little late tonight to go over my parlay, but I did have an NBA parlay I wanted to give everybody, but I guess I can give you guys a little taste of what I have looking tomorrow in the Thursday night football game. One prop that I absolutely love. It's my favorite pick from tomorrow night's game. Thursday night football is Jordan Love over 247.5 pass yards. Last time they played the Lions, he cleared this mark. Now they're coming into the dome, you know, must win game in a sense for them. It's going to be a competitive game. They're going to have to pass the ball. The Lions are a pass funnel. If you want to beat the Lions, you have to pass the ball. So he's going to be slinging it. And, they have everything in their favor. The total is 51.5, so they're expecting a ton of points to be scored. So, yeah, Jordan Love over 247.5 pass yards is my prop lock for Thursday Night Football.
Wow. I mean, that you're telling me to keep Jordan Love in the starting position in my fantasy team. Is that what you're telling me?
Well,
because he's been letting me down. He's been getting barely. Hasn't got 20 points, but he got 19 point something. He had to struggle his ass off to get to that point margin. I mean, I feel like he's been struggling through the air.
It's tough because a guy like him in fantasy football, you need to have some rushing upside. You need to have passing touchdowns, and the Lions are really good at not allowing passing touchdowns, surprisingly, when I say that they're a pass funnel. But, yeah, they have one of the lowest passing touchdowns allowed in the league. But as far as just his yardage, I think that's achievable. As far as starting him in your fantasy lineup and, hoping for 20 points, that might be a reach. But like I said, it's in a dome. Anything could happen. He could throw a couple touchdowns and then, hopefully he falls in the end zone, maybe gets in the red zone. You never know. So I think he's a good bet for maybe like 17. But if he gets you 20 or more, I mean, you're ecstatic.
Oh, yeah. But I feel like you kind of reach a threshold where it's like, okay, now there's no ceiling. We're through the ceiling. The sky's the limit. And we've seen that with Jameis Winston. We've seen that with other quarterbacks too throughout the different, weeks that we've had. But it can happen, and I'm pulling for it. I'm pulling for a big night for Jordan Love through the air, hopefully. So we'll see. And if it does, then we're both happy. So
yeah. Well, I actually am starting him as well in fantasy this week. I have Lamar on a bye. So
okay,
it was either Jordan Love or some iffy quarterbacks on the waiver wire, and I'm like, man, I think the Packers are going to score at least 3 touchdowns tomorrow. So hopefully Love throws for 2 of them, and then we'll be good.
I mean, what about famous Jameis, though? I thought about dropping Sam Darnold and picking up famous Jameis just to get me some points and get me through the playoffs. But
this week, I'm not too excited about him. He's playing the Steelers. Last time he played the Steelers, he had like 10 points. So ceiling against the Steelers isn't too high. So I'm not, and he's turnover prone. So that's somebody I'm staying away from this week.
Gotcha. So real quick to rapid fire, finish it up. Let's talk about an NFL Week 14 preview. Obviously, we talked about Green Bay and Detroit. Maybe not as much in depth. We talked about some props, talked about the over-under, which is, surpassed 50 points. We're looking for a big game points-wise. Who comes out on top here? We know Green Bay is coming in. You mentioned it. You said it yourself. This is a must-win game for Green Bay. Playing in the Dome, you got a lot of opportunities. You don't have the elements to deal with. Where do you see this game going completely objectively?
I think, I was leaning toward the under in this game just because that total is so big. But at the same time, when you take away all the, weather conditions and you just have 2 high-powered offenses in a dome, like anything is possible. And I think we could be in for a really big shootout against 2 competitive NFC North teams. And it'll be interesting. I think the Lions are still going to pull it out. I actually do like the Lions -3.5, but I think Green Bay is going to put up some points, so I just expect the Lions to outscore them.
Paul Steele, it's a home game. Detroit will shut them down. Look at what Detroit did at Green Bay. Big night for Detroit. I don't disagree. It is a big night indeed. Nick Ballinger with the Love stat line prediction: 265 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 INTs. You might not be too far off there, Nick. Let me tell you. I mean, that could be close. I hope no 2 INTs.
As long as it gets the yards.
But for a Detroit Lions fan's sake, definitely you wouldn't mind seeing those INTs. Maybe even a pick 6 for the Detroit defense. It's on the table for sure. Especially you're looking at a Detroit team that won a game that really you could chalk it up as a loss mentally for this Detroit team. I hope Dan Campbell got in that locker room and chewed the ass out of a lot of these players because he probably told them, you guys should have lost that game. You guys should have lost that game, okay? We should have lost that game. And that's what I'm sure he's telling them. So if you treat it like a loss, you take the adversity, you use it to your advantage. I see a star-studded Detroit team coming out of that game and going into Thursday night.
Yeah, that's another reason I'm a little high on Jordan Love is because after you've seen what Caleb Williams just did, I mean, what's Jordan Love going to do? Like, we can all agree he's a better quarterback, so it'll be interesting.
That's right. That's right. They found the holes and they found the vulnerabilities in that Detroit defense, and we know they're hurting as well. Let's talk about Cleveland and Pittsburgh. We know that's a rivalry game. Okay, that's gonna be a good game. Okay, we gotta say that. What are we looking at as far as an outcome here? We know where each of these teams are at in the season. And Mike Tomlin, he's never had a losing season with Pittsburgh, so I got to assume he's not going into this game expecting to lose. And since it's a rivalry game, he's got to really want to win this game. How do you feel about this one playing out?
Oh, well, the Cleveland Browns won the first time they matched up in it was a snowy game. It wasn't, it was kind of the perfect storm for Cleveland to get that tough win over Pittsburgh, who's actually looking like a playoff team this year once again. And in Pittsburgh, I'm not thinking too much about it. I think the Steelers win easily. I think Jameis is just, the turnovers are just too, it's just going to kill this team. And I think the Steelers will split the series with them on the season, get the win. And I'm not thinking too much about this one.
Gotcha. So you claimed the term. You claimed the term Bye-Mageddon. Bye-Mageddon. We're in week 14. Bye-Mageddon. The last week, really, you can have a bye, I believe.
Yep.
What makes this week so important, especially for the teams that are on bye, but even more so for the teams that aren't on bye?
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy. I don't know why the NFL does this. They did it in week 12. They had 6 teams on a bye, and now here we are, week 14 with 6 teams on a bye. I think getting a bye week this late in the year, it just doesn't make sense. I don't know why the NFL just can't have bye weeks running from week 6 to week 10 and get them all in. But 6 teams on a bye, it's tough for fantasy. If you're in a situation where it's hey, I got to win this week to make playoffs, and I got, 3 of my guys on a bye. What if you have Jonathan Taylor and Lamar Jackson and then, Mark Andrews at tight end, let's say. It's dude, those are 3 contributing pieces you've started every week, hoping to make playoffs, and now you're without all of them and digging from the waiver wires, and at this point the waivers have been picked over. There's nothing left out there, so it's a tough week for people in fantasy trying to get wins, and then even for the viewers, so many of these good teams on a bye, it's tough.
Yeah, really, especially for fantasy, because you got so many players that you kind of line them up. Okay, I got this guy's got a bye on week 12, and this guy's on bye on week 9, same position. I should be good for the duration of the season. Maybe make a couple of trades here and there. Maybe pick up a couple of players off waivers. But other than that, I'm going to be good, because you get too many players that are star players that are big components to your team on a bye week the same week. It's damn, I'm really going to be scrambling. I'm going to be dropping players I don't want to drop. And it's just a mess. So you look at 6 teams on a bye in week 14, this late, where you're fighting for playoff contention. A lot of these, bubble teams that are, fantasy managers are really scrambling to see who are we going to put in this position to just get us a dub, get us past the finish line, and get us into the final bracket. Because that's a question a lot of people have right now, and you're probably doing a lot of reconstructing that you might not want to do right now at this point in the season. But that's where they're at.
And even the Commanders pieces, Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson, Terry McLaurin, another high-powered fantasy offense that you've been riding this whole year.
Right. It's true. A lot of people are being plagued by it. Let's talk about the Sunday night football matchup between the Chargers and the Chiefs. What do you got to say about this one?
Should be a great game. The Chiefs got the win last time they played, and now they're in Arrowhead. So it's tough to win in Arrowhead. I think the Chiefs should win this game, but anything can happen in a division matchup like this. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers kind of shock everybody and give the Chiefs their second loss on the season. The Chiefs have been getting bailed out. It's been if they actually put something out, if the Chiefs one score wins have went the other way, they would have like one of the worst records in the NFL. So I wouldn't be surprised here if we see the Chargers win, but it is in Kansas City. The weather's going to come into play there as well. It's going to be cold. So anything can happen, and then the Chargers losing J.K. Dobbins hurts. But Herbert's been playing well, and the receivers are coming into their own, like the rookie Lad McConkey. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers get the win here, but I still think it could go either way.
Yeah, Lad McConkey, he's a guy that I really wish I wouldn't have dropped when I dropped him. I got him. I think I got him out of the draft, actually. And he was a good pickup. I knew he was. I didn't really utilize him to his full potential. Had a couple breakout games. But now he's really becoming one of those number one targets for Justin Herbert. And he's really coming into his own as a wide receiver in the NFL. So I'm happy with what I'm seeing with him. He's going to be a high commodity, come the next season in 25. But keep an eye on him. I mean, he's going to be a factor if they do go into Arrowhead and do the impossible. Would you say Arrowhead is the hardest place to win as a visiting team in the NFL?
I would say I'd say it's up there with Seattle. Two really tough places to play.
Right on. Okay, let's hear our playoff predictions just to wrap us up, and we'll leave the people with that. And then finally, I want to hear a Super Bowl prediction as well. Just give me a matchup. I don't need to hear a winner, loser, anything like that. Give me a Super Bowl prediction. Let's hear it.
Do you want my Super Bowl prediction first?
Yeah, that's fine.
I've actually had this one. I've actually placed a bet on it back in the summer. The Baltimore Ravens versus the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl. That was my bet back in July.
Wow.
And it's looking possible.
It is possible. They got to face the gauntlet of the playoffs, right? Both teams do. There's no sure things, especially once the playoffs come around. And we've seen that last year. That was definitely the case. And you got some, snafus that happen in the late regular season games. So, not improbable. I think it's very possible. But you got to make it through the gauntlet, and that's kind of what it boils down to.
What's your prediction for Super Bowl?
Super Bowl for me, it's the Lions and the Bills. Just because I feel like this is the Bills' year to do it. And Lions fans are going to come at me and say, you know what? Fuck you. I don't want to hear that, as living in Michigan and all this. But I really see that being the matchup. I don't say they win the game. I would like to make a better prediction, maybe a stronger prediction, come following the Bills-Lions game in mid-December here in a week or so. I can get a better prediction for you then. But the Bills are rolling. A lot of similar aspects to their gameplay as I see in the Lions, and even some similarities with the Eagles as well, which bring them into the conversation as a big contender for looking at the Lions, who they're going to have to get past just to make it to the finish line, the final game. But it's looking good. It's looking good for all three of these teams. Really, you can only have two, and one NFC, one AFC. But it's going to be a tough one. Nick Ballinger, do the Lions beat Buffalo though? I mean, that's the age-old question. We got to wait and see. I would like to see how this game tomorrow plays out, because then you're going to really see where the Lions are at.
Right. We could have a little bit of a Super Bowl preview here in that Lions versus Bills game.
Yeah, we really could. Cicelo, Lions, Bills is a good one. Pfeiffer, Eagles looking good. Yeah, the Eagles are looking good. Pfeiffer, that's actually what put it in my brain. And I got Saquon on my team too. That's why I'm looking really good for fantasy.
Nice.
Just snuck into the 6th spot. And I'm in the 6th spot, not based on record. I'm 6-7, but I'm in the 6th spot based on points scored. So it's a beautiful thing. We got to make it through this final week before playoffs and the bracket gets decided. But it's looking pretty good for us, man. How are you looking as far as playoffs in your fantasy?
Well, with Saquon, you always have a chance. Unfortunately, I do not have him. I just lost like 3 or 4 games in a row. I was looking like a shoe-in, and now I have a little bit of a sweat this week. I have to win. If I win, I'm in. If I lose, I need my points for to carry me to playoffs. So it's going to be close.
Wow. So there's a team that's on the bubble with you
Oh yeah, three of us.
where if you do incur a loss, then that points total is going to come into play.
Yep. If I lose, it opens the door for two other teams to sneak in.
Oh, two other teams.
Yeah, two. And I'm playing one of them. So if he beats me, he has to beat me and outscore me by like 50, which is, it's kind of a long shot, but hey, I've seen crazier things happen.
Well, yeah, I remember I think it was last week or so, maybe 2 weeks ago. It was when I started my 2-win run to kind of build back. And you talk about doing it in the 11th hour. That's exactly what my team did. And I had a 17% chance of winning against Tony Manerick. And
Wow.
it wasn't looking good. We had Saquon still to play. He wound up putting 46 up for me.
There you
So
go.
it was a sight to be seen. I don't know if we'll ever see that again, but he's a hell of an athlete, man. And I guess I never really could have seen or foreseen rather what he was going to be able to do in Philly compared to what he'd been doing in New York, which we knew he was a star-studded running back, but I never knew he had this kind of ceiling, and his ceiling just seems to be getting higher every week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the Eagles running backs who've been there, years past, I mean, you put someone like Saquon in that role, and it's like, man, the sky's the limit. Like he was a superstar talent in New York, and they were horrible every year. They had one of the worst offensive lines. He never had any help, and now he has arguably a top five, offensive line in the league, and a quarterback who can run and throw. So I mean, there's so many more threats on the field, and I think he opens it up for everybody, and they open it up for him. So it's it's a match made in heaven, as you could say. And the Giants really dropped the ball there, letting him go. Really, really terrible to see that one.
Yeah, it's really
Over like
interesting.
a couple $1 million too.
I know it.
Like
I
2
know
million.
it's tight margins. You're talking about tight margins. We're talking about cap space, talking about cap allocation, salary allocation, all that stuff. Really crazy to talk about. But looking at that aspect from him going from New York to Philly, and then you look at guys like Stephon Diggs going from Buffalo, thinking that that's going to be the nail in the coffin for Buffalo. It winds up not mattering at all. He winds up, doing okay for Houston, but nothing like we expected him to. You got Devontae coming over from Las Vegas, joining Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, and really you don't hear about him anymore. That was a 1 week thing that could have been something great that wound up becoming nothing. So these predictions, these things that we're going to have a guy that he was good here. He played good with these, assets before, talking about Devontae and Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. And then seeing him play in a different location, same setup, and completely different result. It's really kind of crazy to see that. And you have predictions going into those trades and those moves, but you can never really expect to see what winds up happening until it really takes form. And it happens in good ways and happens in bad ways too, no matter what move occurs.
Yeah, well, there was such high hopes for the Jets. It's just really a lost season, you could say. They tried to hold on by making that Devontae Adams move, and I mean him and Aaron Rodgers are 4 years removed from their last time playing together. So I mean it's a work in progress. Like if they would have started from week one, maybe it'd been a different story. But it looks like they're kind of still figuring it out, and I mean the target volume is there with Adams, so. But to go back to your point about going to new teams, I mean, look at these three running backs: Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. They all have had a resurgence, and you're like, people are surprised, like, oh, what? Like, I never expected these guys to do good. I thought they were dust. It's like, it's really kind of making a statement that hey, these running backs deserve that second contract. Like if they're in the right situation, they're going to do well. And look at all these teams, the Packers, the Ravens, the Eagles, all playoff teams. And then look at the teams they came from, bottom 5 in the NFL. So it's a funny thing to see there where people think these old running backs aren't worth it, but they're proven they still got the juice.
Yeah, they really do. It really is an interesting aspect that never really hit me until just now. especially the Derrick Henry one. It's like you're writing him off as he's done. And then you see him playing now for the Ravens, and he's a phenom. He's back to day one. He's like this. You can't stop this guy, and he's going to be a huge threat and a huge asset for the Baltimore Ravens going forward. We'll switch gears here. I'll do it for Nick Ballinger. Nick, I love you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. He has a question. Do you guys think there's an actual race for the Heisman, or does Travis Hunter railroad everyone? Obviously, you got Ashton Jeanty over there in Boise State being a threat. Tone, what do you think?
It's tough. It is a tough call. I think both guys are deserving. I think what Travis Hunter has done is, if there wasn't an Ashton Jeanty in the college football world, I think it'd be a no-brainer for Travis Hunter. But what Jeanty has done, taking a team like Boise State, who is, they should have never made the college football playoff, but here they are, and it's literally on his back. So as much as I like what Travis Hunter does, and I think he's going to be a great player for years to come, I don't know how you don't give it to Jeanty. What he's done is just remarkable.
You look at the Heisman odds, though. It looks like they're pretty stacked.
Yeah,
Travis Hunter's
it's gonna be
favor.
close.
I mean, could the impossible? I don't want to say the impossible. It's not impossible by any stretch of the word, but could we see Vegas be wrong in this case?
I can make the argument for Hunter too. What he's done on both sides of the ball is we haven't seen it in the league since Charles Woodson, and what did he do? He won the Heisman. So I wouldn't be surprised if he won it either. But when you're going against a guy like Jeanty, who's taken a what people say poverty team in Boise to where they've been, like next year, what's Boise going to be without him? So it's the impact that you have on your team, and I think he is way more valuable to Boise than Travis Hunter is to Colorado.
Yeah, I agree. Lucas Sabatini, great point about Jacobs, Henry, and Barkley. Definitely got the juice. Yeah, I mean, you can see it week after week what these guys are able to do, and they're really defying the odds, as Tone said. So let's just see him continue to do it, continue to prove people wrong. And that's what they're doing. So
yep.
Happy.
I forgot even to mention Joe Mixon. He looks like a different running back this year as well.
That's right. A lot of guys in that category where they were expected to do great things, and they wound up becoming nobodies, irrelevant. And then you got guys that were expected to do nothing, and they're shining stars. So it's really a sign of the times to see that, and that's just the game of football. If you can put the team on your back and prove people wrong, then you have that ability to do that. Lucas, again with a comment. We got to go. We're switching back to college football. This is double coverage, guys. You know that, right? I'm just kidding. Jeanty, a lock for Heisman. Nobody like him now. In my opinion, when Travis goes to the league, he's going to be the only either a wide receiver or cornerback. I don't think any teams would have him play both and risk injury. Probably true. I'm surprised they're doing it now, to be honest with you. But still has great opportunity to win the Heisman, but my vote's with Jeanty for sure. Yeah, I mean, I like, especially as a long shot bet. That's the last thing I'll say about it. Especially as a long shot bet, and it's really not a long shot. That's the thing. I would love Jeanty to win it, and I think he is very well deserving. And just like Tone mentioned, the impact that he's had and the ability he's had to literally put the team on his back is unbelievable. Never seen anything like it, really. So I don't know what it's. You just gotta wait and see. It's one of those things you gotta wait and see. Good deal. That brings us to the end of the podcast here tonight. Tone Malone, you got any final words, final comments for the people?
I will just say appreciate you guys tuning in, and good luck on all your bets this weekend and tonight or tomorrow or in the future.
We got a final comment. We got to address it. It's the man, Michael Pfeiffer. I'll let Tone answer this one. Do you guys think Deion Sanders will contend for championships without Travis Hunter and Shedeur next year? Tone, what do you think?
Well, is he even contending for a championship right now? He's not even going to make the Big 10 or the Big 12 championship. So I don't know. Probably if he's not doing it now, probably not.
Yeah. It all comes down to your players, and if you don't have good players to choose from, obviously you hope with a good, successful season, semi-successful at best, maybe for the Buffs this year. You hope that can bring in some good recruits, but that's really a big hope. That's a big if. So if that doesn't happen, then I think they're toast. So
Well, the real question is, does Dion coach Buffalo next year, or do we see him maybe take a step into the big leagues?
I would not be surprised to see that. I could see him doing that real easy. You got a lot of teams that have openings. Bill Belichick has shown interest in coming back. Even even the one and only John Gruden has been, there's been ideas thrown out there of him coming to coach the Bears, right? I mean, there's so many opportunities on the table, so many openings, so many holes in the head coaching position in the NFL that really anybody could go anywhere, and I wouldn't be surprised.
It's gonna be a coach carousel.
Yep, it is. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to check out all of our links at the bottom of the podcast in this description down below. And be sure to check out Tone Malone on Instagram at Malone Beats the Books. His links will be below in the podcast description as well. For now, I'm John J. II here with double coverage alongside Tone Malone. Have a great night.